welcome to another video. If you are new here, my name is Peyton and I share lots of vlogs on this channel, and I also share beauty and fashion things as well, so welcome. So anyway, as you guys can tell by the title, this video is dedicated to how I edit my Instagram photos, and it all kind of stemmed from a photo I recently shared on my Instagram, and if you guys don't follow me, I'll insert my handle here. But anyway, a lot of people were really surprised when I showed the before and after of something I edited out of the picture. I'll actually insert that picture here, but basically what I did was completely remove the door. It's very, very simple, but that kind of spiraled into this whole video that I wanted to make for you all, and that is exactly how I edit my Instagram photos. So before I get into the full editing process, I want to give you guys a couple quick tips that come before you actually edit your photos. So the first one is that I always take my photos with burst. So if you don't know what burst is, essentially it's just when you take photos on your phone, you actually are capturing hundreds versus just one or two at a time. So if you don't know how to do it, basically you just have whoever's taking your photo, hold down the middle button, depending on which version iPhone you have, it is either holding down the middle and then it starts taking hundreds, or they quickly pull it to the side, which is what mine is, and then it's starting to take hundreds of pictures. And basically with doing that, instead of just getting one or two photos, you're gonna go back to that photo that they took via burst, and you actually get to go through, and there's probably like 100, 200, 300 in there, and you actually can sort through and choose the exact ones that are your favorites. And it makes it super easy because it helps get more candid moments. So for instance, if I'm like brushing my hair back, it'll actually capture the full movement versus me having to pose and hold it and it looking a little bit less natural. So I really love that to make my photos look as natural as possible. And then beyond that, I always try to choose like more of a neutral background for taking my photos. It kind of varies with like where I am, but that is an easy tip if you want your photos to be like a little more simple to edit. And then lastly is before I edit, I will actually go through all of the pictures and I'll favorite all of the ones that I'm interested in editing. And that way when I start to edit, the process is super straightforward and I'm not overwhelmed with like hundreds of photos to make sure I'm choosing the right one that I like. I just choose those before I edit and then take them into the editing process with me. So now that I've gone through all of those tips, I'm actually going to turn on my screen recording and show you guys the full process of how I edit my photos. And like I said, I pretty much do this every single time, so it's not too tricky and it only takes a couple different apps. So the first app that I always start with is Lightroom. And if you guys aren't familiar with Lightroom, it actually is meant for changing the lighting in photos, as you can kind of pick up from the name. But once I open up Lightroom, essentially what I'm going to do is change the shadows in the photos. So if I need to make it brighter or if I want to make it darker, this is the perfect app to do that. So I already have imported a couple photos into here that I want to show you how to edit, but I'm going to do a selfie and then I'll do a full body shot, and it's actually going to be that shot with the door in the background. That way you can kind of see a mix. But here you go. So this is the selfie I'm going to show you. For me, I typically will go the easy route and just press auto. So you can see in the bottom bar, you can have the auto option. I don't like how that edited this picture though, specifically, so you can see when I click on this, the before and after of what auto did. So I'm actually going to undo that and then manually edit it. So usually I'll kind of play around with exposure. I can also play around with the contrast. Highlights are great because you can kind of play around with them and they'll like brighten up certain areas of the picture. Shadows are also good, so you can see here my hair is getting a ton more blonde versus way darker. So I'll put that up for this photo for sure, because I want it to be definitely bright and like vibrant since it is a selfie. I want it to be like when people see it. And then usually I kind of just play around with each of these until I end up with something I like. And then I go into the color tab and I'll start playing with the saturation a bit. So I'll turn that up a little bit to make it a little bit warmer. Sometimes I'll play with the vibrance. Honestly, it's kind of like unique for each photo if the auto one doesn't work. And like I said, I did not like how auto made me look in this photo. So otherwise you can also go into mix and sort of play around with each of the individual colors. So if it's looking a little bit green or yellow, you can definitely turn that down a bit. But honestly, I like how this one turned out. So I'm actually going to save this back to my camera roll. So export it to camera roll. And now that I've done that, I usually go into Facetune next. So Facetune's a great app if you really want to get rid of like any sort of fine lines. If you have a zit or something and you want to remove it, it's great for that. And it's also great for adding some detail to your photos. So for me, it's really important that I always look like myself at the end of using Facetune. You can definitely get carried away with it and turn out fake, but for me, it's so important that I'm still there at the end of my photos, because it's not going to make me feel good if I look like one way in my photos and then I don't look that way in person. So when I edit in Facetune, it's always very light. I'll show you guys truly how I edit these sort of photos. But again, it's important to make sure that you are still there in your photos, so don't overdo it. So I'm just going to go to Recents and open up that photo that I just changed the lighting on. And basically what I'm going to do is start with smoothing. So you guys can see here that my skin is a little bit oily. I have bumps, obviously. So I'm actually going to take the 1 drop of smooth and just start going over certain areas. I like to go under my eyes. I like to obviously get my cheeks and then kind of just smooth out different areas. I think that looks pretty good. I'll get that spot there. If you wanted to do a little more intense smoothing, so let's say you have a really big zit that you want to hide completely, you can do the double drop, but I don't recommend that just because it is going to look a little bit more unnatural. And then usually, like let's say for this picture, my armpit is hanging out. I will actually smooth out my armpit because no one wants to see your little armpit bumps or anything like that. And then I'll just kind of like smooth out my tan, because I do obviously use tanning lotion and sometimes it's not perfect. So I'll typically do that. So you guys can see here, this is what it looks like. I'm going to do a quick before and after. So really this is what smoothing does. It kind of just took away those lines on my face and any sort of bumps. But again, it still looks like me. I didn't make it perfect. You can still see bumps on my face, etc. And the only other thing I typically do in Facetune is add details. So details is what it sounds like. It adds detail to a certain part of your photo. And what I typically do is add details to my eyes. So I'm going to take that detail tool and just go around my eyes, just on that top lash to really like make them pop. And then for this one, it was a sponsored necklace post. So I'm going to, of course, add detail to the necklace and just make it shiny. But from there, that's pretty much all I'll do in Facetune. So smoothing and details are the only ones I do there. So now I'm going to save that to my camera roll. And the last step that I'll do for this sort of picture is open up Visco. And I'll just import that same photo from my camera roll. So now that I'm in Visco, I'm going to go to the editing. And something a lot of people don't realize is I don't use any filters, period. So that is why for me, lighting is so important, and just always taking photos with good lighting is because I don't have a filter that I go to use and really edit. It's kind of like every single photo has the same step-by-step process, but I need the lighting to already be decent enough in order to make it work. So all I do is a couple different things, and it is cropping, sharpening, and then adding grain. So I'm going to show you that full process. So the first thing I do is adjust. I put it always in the 4:5 ratio, and then I adjust it because that is what Instagram's ratio is the 4:5. So this makes it super easy. As soon as you're ready to post the photo on Instagram, it's already cropped perfectly, and you're not going to get any sort of like weird movement with your photo where like half of your forehead is cut out or something like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and proactively put it in Instagram's size. And now I'm going to do the Sharpen tool. I usually only raise this up to 1 or a 2. And personally, I like it because it makes my eyebrows stand out a little bit more. And I really like when eyebrows look like a little fluffier. So I typically will do 1 or a 2. Kind of depends per photo. And then lastly, what I'm going to do in Visco is add some grain. So I like to zoom a little bit to see how much grain is getting added. But I usually do like a 1 or a 2 is normally pretty natural, but it kind of just like smooths everything out once again. So that is everything I would do for this sort of photo. Save it down to my camera roll again, and then I would upload it. So that was super simple. It took me like 3 minutes typically if I were editing this without talking. It's a very simple process. So I'll pull up actually the before and after to show you guys. So here's the before and after. You can just see it's so much brighter, still looks like me, but Obviously it's a lot sharper, my skin is more smooth, and you can see my face way better than the lighting that I have in that photo. So that is the process for a selfie. And now I'm actually going to show you guys the photo right here. That is the one that everyone freaked out with the editing. It's basically the exact same process with only one step that is different, and that is using the Retouch app. So now that I have the photo edited in that exact same process, I'm going to go over to the Retouch app. And the Retouch app essentially is what you would use to remove anything from your photos. So I recently discovered this app. I am such a newbie to the app, and I can't believe I hadn't used it ever before because it seriously is life-changing. So basically I'm going to add in that photo that I just edited, and the process in here is super simple. I actually am going to try to remove that door in the background. There's nothing wrong with the door, it's just something that I don't want in this photo anymore. So I'm going to start with the quick repair option. I might have to switch over to object removal, but usually it's kind of like a trial and error with this app. So I'm going to zoom in. I just clicked on the quick repair, and basically I'm going to slide over the door completely. It's not going to turn out perfect for sure the first time, but again, trial and error, and let's see how this looks. So I just let go, and let's see. Okay, so obviously the coloration here is not perfect. So basically I'm just going to repeat that process over and over until it looks nice. So let's see this time. Okay, it's getting a little bit better. So literally this is the entire process that I follow to remove something. And then what I'm going to do once the door is actually fully removed and the wall looks very normal, because I don't want it to look splotchy, I don't want it to be noticeable that I removed something from there, I'm gonna go in with the Facetune app and just like smooth out any sort of lines that look weird and details like that. So I'm gonna continue working on this, and then I'll show you guys what it looks like right after. So after a lot of trial and error, I have the photo that I want. I'm just gonna open it up into the Facetune app, and like I said, I'm going to work on some of the details just to make sure it looks good. So here's the photo, and basically I just go down into the corners everywhere that I removed anything, and I just smooth it out with the smoothing tool all over again. I kind of want to just kind of like erase any sort of visual that I edited something out of the photo. But overall, I think it looks pretty good. It is something you have to be very patient with. Again, it takes multiple tries to remove something completely. But if you want to remove something, you kind of do have to put in that effort, because obviously it is in the picture and you're taking it out. So just put in the time and you're going to be able to get it in just a few minutes. And again, this is the same sort of message I shared before. Use it sparingly, like don't overdo it ever. Be smart with what you're removing, but let's say there are people in your beach picture. You can remove them from the water using the Retouch app, etc. So that's my full process of editing a selfie and then a full body picture. And then you guys can see I have 3 apps that I always use: Lightroom, Facetune, and Visco. And then I sometimes will use that Retouch app, like I said, if I do want to remove something from a photo. This process is something that I've been doing probably for a year or more now. It's what works for me. And if you guys did like this sort of how-to/tutorial video, let me know. I can definitely do more of these related to Instagram, related to home decor, related to anything. Just leave a comment below and I'm happy to do a video on it. So anyway, if you did like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.